Welcome, everybody. I am so excited to have my special guest here for this conversation, who is my friend of over 30 years, I think, by now.
Wow.
Kelly Collins-Lintz. It's such an honor, such a pleasure. I am so excited. Kelly, not besides having the distinction of being my first roommate that I had when I first moved to Orlando, and one of my bridesmaids from a million years ago. She is a mom first, an actress, a momager, meaning she is in charge of her kid's career, and a Sapphire ambassador for Plexus. And Kelly is going to share with us her story around how she's really found a way to express her passion and her purpose through her work. So, welcome, Kelly.
Thank you. Now I feel old though, so goodbye.
I, I should have said that.
30 years? Are you kidding me?
No, I only met Kelly like 10 years ago. It was like, we were young pups, and now look at us now. That's what happened.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
Kelly, tell us. What I'd love to do is like go back in time. So, when I met you,
Yeah.
you were thinking about starting an acting career, but you really didn't go full on into it until a few years later. So, tell us a little bit about your story around how you got into acting and how you experienced the acting profession and what you've done.
Right. Well, it's interesting because I've always, ever since I was a very young child, had the goal of working as a professional actress. I was one of those people that knew what they wanted to do from a very early age, whether it was for the right or wrong reasons. And I pursued it all the way through my growing up years via training. I was that annoying kid that was like in the school play, and then I would leave school and go do the community theater play at night. And I was literally Leah Michelle on Glee before there was Leah Michelle on Glee. That was me. And then I took a little bit of a detour. I went to Penn State for performance and got my degree in performance. And through a series of odd events, I took a job in Orlando that had nothing to do with the industry. And it was one of those things where God literally said, "This is what I want you to do." It made no sense. And yet at the same time, you know how sometimes you get that gut feeling of this makes no sense, but I know I'm supposed to do it. And so I did. And I took this job that had nothing to do with the entertainment industry. And I moved to Orlando. And it was there that I got my first start professionally in acting, because when people leave drama school, you don't really hear them saying, "All right, I'm off to Orlando." Like they're either off to New York or they're off to Los Angeles. And that's what I think one of
Or
the
they're
reasons,
going to Orlando for Disney.
or for Disney, right? And that really wasn't me either. And so, but what the truth about Central Florida is that it was the commercial capital of the country, because it's warm all year round there. And because the talent pool was pretty small, I was able to get an agent really easily and start working professionally in the industry, even doing some small roles in television, because there were some shows that were shooting on the back lot of Universal Studios, shows shooting in Miami. And I was able to actually start doing more than my drama school counterparts were. And here they thought that I was I wasn't even going to pursue it. And then they're like, "Did I just see you on this show?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they were like, "How did that happen?" And I'm like, "God." So,
So, can I ask you a question about this one, though? So, you were working in a very different type of role. What made you decide that this whole acting side of you really needed to have expression? What were the signs that said, I do need to go get an agent, even though you were doing some other work that you felt was meaningful? How did you know that this was something you should pursue?
because I felt like God sort of directed me into some areas where he was like, "Hey, listen, this is what I wanted you to do all along. I just needed you to go through the back door, because it's a much better way." So sometimes the advantage of listening to God whenever we're trying to make decisions is that he has a bird's eye view of the best path to get there. And so when you choose to listen to that, sometimes you have an advantage. And I really feel like he led me into some places where he was like, "See, this would not have happened if you would have followed your little plan of like moving to New York, where I'm quite certain I would have gotten eaten alive, would have been very discouraged and would have moved back home to my parents' basement immediately.
Okay, so some people might be saying, so Kelly, you hear from God. What does he say? Does he come down on high? Like, what do you mean when you hear the voice of God? Like, how do you get yourself in that state where you're attuning to a direction from a different part of you? Like, how do you get to that place? Or is that just the way you've always been wired?
That's the way I've always been wired from a very young age. I kind of had a little bit of a spiritual experience when I was 4 years old, where it was very clear to me that there was a higher power that had created me, that loved me, that wanted the best for me. And that's a whole other story. But I've always listened to what I call the still small voice. And it's that voice in our head that says, go here, not there, or don't choose him, choose him. Or even as simple as perhaps one sleeve of Oreos is plenty for today, you know? And so I always listen to that voice, and I've never regretted doing what it said, ever.
How do you know the difference between that small voice, and sometimes we hear a small voice that's nasty to us too? It's like, oh my God, who are you kidding? You should have that second sleeve of Oreos. Like, how do you know the difference between the voice that you hear inside your head that is for your good, and then the one who sort of keeps you down?
Well, for one, because the still small voice is not nasty.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's never nasty. It always wants what's best for you. So if it's telling you not to eat the sleeve of Oreos, it's because it wants you to fit into your jeans. So, I mean, I've definitely listened to that other voice many, many times too, and allowed it to rule the day. And I think one of the secrets of success is the people that don't do that tell that voice to be quiet. Your mind is so powerful, and it's one of the reasons why I feel like I've been able to be successful in a variety of arenas, because I have not let that voice win the war. It's won some battles, but not the war.
That is really powerful, because
Yeah.
there could be that battle that you hear in your head is, I really want to do this, but then you hear the nasty voice that says, who are you kidding? Why would you be this person who would do X, Y, and Z? So it sounds like when you were, in that role, and you heard the still small voice say to you, hey, this acting part of you really does need expression. Go for it. Even though you might have had concerns, you still went for it anyway.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I think in order to be successful in Hollywood, you have to know how to take some gut punches in fetal positions. Rejection is the name of the game. And those who are successful have just heard the word no more and have not let it, deter them. So we've heard many, many no's. You have to audition professionally. You probably have to audition anywhere from 30 to 50 times to get one yes. So we don't even think about the no's. It's just part of it.
So when you were down here in Orlando, what was your big break? And then where did you go from there?
Oh gosh. Well, my very first commercial ever was for Kohl's. So I did that. I did lots and lots of commercials for Aquafresh and Kmart and McDonald's. I did a McDonald's Super Bowl commercial. When I was in Orlando, I was sort of the commercial queen of the universe. And this was before any of my kids joined me in the industry. And then again, after 10 years, and then right before I moved out of Orlando, I had the distinction of working with Kermit the Frog. So that was really cool. I did a Muppet movie that I still get paid residuals on to this day. That was called Kermit Swamp Years, and it was sort of like what was Kermit's childhood like? Aww. And I saved him from dissection, is what I did in the movie.
So was Kermit as nice as we remember him to be?
He was so great.
Did you ask him to sing The Rainbow Connection to you personally?
I don't think I did, but what was really fun is a guy named Steve Whitmire is the puppeteer behind Kermit.
Is that a trade secret? Is there actually a puppeteer behind him? Go on.
But even between takes, he would not break character. So you would every now and again be watching the monitor between takes and you'd see Kermit yawn. It was they were amazing. Watching these guys was amazing. And what's so weird is at the time when I met him, I said, well, where are you based out of, Steve? And he's like, oh, I live in a little town called Cumming, Georgia. It's about 45 minutes north of Atlanta. And I was like, never heard of that. 6 months later, I would move to Cumming, Georgia.
Wow.
So weird. And I still live there, and it is a little town north of Atlanta. And again, the still small voice said, great, you've done what I need you to do in Orlando. Now it's time to go to Atlanta. And I was able to be in Atlanta on the very ground floor of what has now become one of the biggest film and television industries in the country.
Wow. Okay, so you had kids when you were in Orlando, and then you moved to Georgia. And I believe you had a stint in LA too. Is that accurate?
Well, we moved to Atlanta, and that's when I really got my start in film and television, landing supporting roles in some larger projects. And they would cast their leads out of the LA or New York market, but they didn't want to, travel everyone in because that's expensive. So a lot of times the supporting roles would go to local actors. And again, I had plopped myself right into the middle of a much more manageable talent pool. And so was able to land roles on, shows for NBC. I did a season of One Tree Hill. Was able to, work on lots of different movies. And it was great. And then my children followed me into the industry. And I suppose what my children are most known for, even though they've all worked on many, many projects, is 3 of my 4 children have played prominent roles on a little known zombie show called The Walking Dead. So that is kind of, my daughter landed a role on that in seasons 1 and 2. And again, because they wanted to cast the child actors from here. And so Chandler Riggs, who played Carl, and my daughter, who played Sophia, were both Atlanta actors. And so then I never wanted to go to LA because all of my friends that went to LA, like a lot of times in Orlando, they were like, we're blowing this popsicle stand. We're headed to Los Angeles to make it big because we can't get big roles here in Orlando. Well, they went to LA and fell off the face of the earth, never to be heard from again. For the most part, there were a couple success stories, but it's a difficult town. And so I never had any interest in going there because, I would much rather work some than never. However, when my children started, landing some great roles, seeing some success, I wanted them to have the opportunity, and it's much easier to get your foot in the door out there as a child actor. So we would spend weeks at a time out there. And I didn't even want to do that, but a manager found us in Los Angeles. They reached out to us and said, have you ever thought about working in this market? And,
so you were bi-coastal. So you were in two homes at the same time. So you didn't fully move to LA.
Never.
You still kept your base in Atlanta, and you moved to LA.
You would only go out there for this portion of the year that's called pilot season. And that's when all of the new shows that we're trying to get on the air would shoot a pilot episode. So it was a concentrated time of lots of auditions. So we would go out there, try to land on a pilot, and then half the time the pilot doesn't even get picked up. So we did that for a while. But then the advent of self-taping came into play, where you tape your auditions and you send them in, and then it really doesn't matter where you are. If the casting people know you, they don't care if you're there or here or wherever. So that really helped us too. So
it's so interesting because most people would say, oh my gosh, you are living the dream. You are Hollywood family, everybody's successful. And at some point you decided to go and add this whole other dimension to your career around owning your own business and becoming a Plexus ambassador. Can you share a little bit more around how did you go from this to this, and why is this such an obvious passion project? If anybody who has followed Kelly has an amazing Facebook page, and she's got a ton of following around her Plexus business. And the passion just oozes all out of you. And most people would be like, well, this is the dream. Why is this the dream?
That's such a great question. And again, it was a result of the still small voice saying, go. You don't have to understand it, just go. And it began by accident, as a lot of great things do. At 4.5 years ago, I was searching for some solutions for my health. I was struggling with some issues, mainly surrounding mood, just some chronic anxiety and depression issues. And I thought it was because I was a mom of 4 and we're all exhausted, or that I'm an actor and we're all angst-ridden and crazy. So I just thought it was sort of part of my dark soul. But no, my gut was unhealthy and I just didn't know it. And so a friend of mine, actually another actress who I played sisters with on a television show about 10 years ago now, she posted on Facebook that she'd been able to get off her anxiety meds by getting her gut healthy. And that sounded like total voodoo to me, because no doctor ever said that to me. They just wrote me a prescription. So I tried the products that she suggested that had to do with gut health and root healing. And boy, it was a miracle. Within 3 weeks, I felt a lift in my mood. And within 3 months, I was a completely different human being. And I still would have rather run off a cliff naked and on fire than delve into any kind of network marketing opportunity, because I had my preconceived notions of what that was. People started asking me about it. People started wanting what I had. You look happier. What are you doing? Also, I feel like you're losing weight. What are you doing? Your skin looks better, And so it became, for me, I just basically became a Plexus ambassador to meet demand. Then at the same exact time that I was looking for solutions for my health, we had a nagging problem in our family, in that my children were becoming really successful and they were all working. And so the problem is that one of us had to be on set with them at all times. And when you have more than one child working at once, Mark could be in Los Angeles with our daughter who was starring on Bosch, and I would have to be in Budapest, Hungary with my son who was starring on The Alienist. And every now and again we would be like, I wonder who's at home paying the mortgage. We don't know. And it became a real issue of how can we work when we're helping our children work, which puts you I began to really understand how a lot of these parents end up having to live off of their children because there's no choice. But I did not like that. It was not a comfortable place for me to be. And so one night I just sat down and I was like, Lord, I am profoundly exhausted and I don't have a solution to this. But I don't know how to do anything else. Like I'm an actor and I really don't know what else I would want to get out of bed to do. And he's like, I got you. And a couple months later is when I ran across Plexus. And again, he had to trick me. He had to really trick me. But when I started seeing how much I was helping people, when friends started calling me saying, I can't believe how much better I feel. My depression is gone. Oh my gosh, I've lost 30 pounds. Or my autoimmune issues are resolving. Wow. I started to feel an emotion that the entertainment industry had never brought to me. And that was peace, serenity, and joy. So I want to bring up this idea that a lot of times what we think will make us happy actually takes us in the opposite direction. And while we had a lot of success in Hollywood, while we had a lot of admiration for that, which felt good, it's a glitzy glam situation and people admire it, it's unique. So we had a lot of satisfaction, I guess, but not a lot of peace and joy. And I will say this, the closer that my children got to fame, the more we dealt with mental health issues in them.
Wow.
Which is
Can you say that phrase again? Is that when you go closer to what you think would make you happy, that what you just said was so powerful. And it really doesn't. You know, that there's something about flying too close to the sun. It's not all it's cracked up to be. That's just so powerful. I just want to sit with that whole idea for a second.
Well, I think there's the idea that fame equals happiness. And in almost 100% of the cases that I know of, and we've worked with many A-list actors that everybody knows, the opposite was true. The more famous they were, the more miserable they were. And when we began to experience the same, a lot of satisfaction, a lot of people admiring us, like I said, but also the primary emotions I was actually feeling in my body were anxiety, fear, financial instability. You know, you get a job and you're like, well, this is going to be ending in February. Then what are we going to do? So I was really tired of the financial instability. I was really tired of being at the whim of what I called an abusive spouse. Hollywood is like an abusive spouse in that it gives you pearls one day and tells you you're beautiful. And the next day it will beat the crap out of you. And you never know why. And you never can duplicate what you did to get the pearls in the first place, because what works one day doesn't work the next. And it's a very unsettling, unstable situation to be in. It's why I feel like most Hollywood actors are also have addiction problems. So I was like, oh my God, this doesn't make me happy at all. This doesn't make me happy. And I only realized it when I actually started feeling happiness and joy from this other venture that maybe wasn't as shiny, wasn't as, flashy or unique. And yet I felt so much more peace and serenity, not to mention I started getting a paycheck that was insane. And I was like, wow. I was able to finally afford the first new car I'd ever owned. And in your 30, 20.
So people are going to be like, how, you were a successful Hollywood actress. I'm super confused why you couldn't afford a car. People might say that. So there must be some myths that we all have about the shiny fame of acting.
Oh yeah. I mean, only 6% of all actors make a living acting. They all have other things going on. I mean, Dave Ramsey says the smartest thing you can do is have 3 sources of income, 3 streams of income. One of them should be passive. We had like 8 or 9. I was managing my children. I was acting myself. I was voicing audiobooks. I was coaching child actors. I was consulting parents of child actors. That was a grueling pace I was setting for myself. And I was exhausted. And so this opportunity allowed me to let go of some of those methods of earning an income that I didn't find all that fulfilling. And it was great. And, in your 20s and 30s, you're sort of willing to starve for your art. And in your 40s, you kind of just want some granite countertops, And so I've been able to get those. And I'm like, my computer's sitting on one right now that I was able to afford because of my Plexus income. So, and I didn't do, that was one of the main reasons why I became intentional about that business. But it also was like, I'm having so much fun doing this. I have to really take a look at this and say, does what I always thought from the time I was 4 years old would make me happy, and yet it's not? Am I brave enough to let it go? Because I think a lot of times what we think is going to make us feel the emotion of happiness and joy in our body does not. And yet we keep thinking that it will, or we haven't reached the right stage of it yet, or we haven't done this yet. And when we do that, then that's when the emotions come. And I think that's maybe the secret of life, really, is figuring that out.
You've done this more than once. So when you had the other role back in the day that was not in the entertainment industry, you asked yourself that same question and went down this path and listened to what that still small voice was saying. And now you're at that same point, is to say, I want to be happy in what I do. I want to enjoy my life in a different way. And I'm going to listen to this and I'm going to go for this, even if it doesn't make sense. It didn't make, but people didn't think this made sense. And I went and did it anyway. And now I'm doing the same again.
Yeah, because life is a process and it's a journey. And God knows that. And he's like, well, all right, I'm going to let her go down this path a little bit so that she can learn that Hollywood is a cesspool. But ironically, this is so crazy. The more successful that I got with Plexus, the more I worked as an actress. And I think it's because I would literally go in, like Hollywood can smell desperation, And I think I started going into auditions like, I'm making six figures. You do what you want, And so I started getting more work because I wasn't so stressed and desperate to get the work.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. I talk with my mentees about that all the time, is you cannot need the job more than you can't need the job more than you can bring to the job. Like if that's the case, people will know it in every sense of the word. So that is so brilliant. So now you have this Plexus business. Tell me, what is it that you love the most? Like what is so great about it that makes you want to give up a lot of what you were doing before for this business?
Well, I would say mainly the people that I'm working with is a huge part of it. Whenever you have to be a certain kind of narcissist to really make a career as an actor, and what that translates to is when you're in that industry, you're working with a lot of kind of self-centered, self-absorbed, narcissistic people. And I mean, yes, there's some good people, but the majority, you have to be like that in order to be successful. And so I didn't realize how not fun that was until I started working with a bunch of people who weren't that way. And so one of the things too that we do is in any entrepreneurial effort, it takes a ton of personal growth, and we spend a lot of time doing that. And that translates into every other area of our life because we're all pursuing other things besides Plexus too. So the same things that are helping me become a successful entrepreneur are what's helping me finish writing a book I'm trying to write, building my platform for that book and for my Plexus business. So we're learning a lot. We're learning it together. We, at a time in my life, where I'm almost an empty nester, where our circle it usually contracts, mine has exploded in the very best way with some of the best people, smart women that do not listen to that negative voice. They can do anything because they've told themselves that they can. Being around that type of person, and then they help you and they cheerlead you and they're encouraging to you, it's just been one of the biggest unexpected blessings of beginning a business like this. And so that's what I love. That's what keeps me here, is the people. The products are a no-brainer for me. I mean, there's a lot of great products out there, and so I would suggest find one that you're passionate about. Maybe it's cleaning supplies. Maybe it's makeup that's cruelty-free. I don't know. For me, it's gut health and root healing products that to me were life-changing. And changing people's lives with this has been far more gratifying than saying a few lines in a movie here and there.
So what I'm hearing you say as it relates to what's so great about this particular business, one, you have a personal connection to the product and you're passionate about it. So you have your own personal transformation. Second is having your own business gave you more control over your earning and what your income looks like. Sounds like the third thing around it is that you get to choose what kind of people you surround yourself with from a customer standpoint, from a teammate standpoint, and you get to surround yourself with really good people. And then it sounds like from the people side also, there's building that tribe and that you're building your connections on the whole. And then the main thing that I heard you say that translates to everything else is building your own business has been the key personal development opportunity for you that has translated into all the other parts of your life. That 100%. Those are some of the big drivers. Did I miss anything? Did I hear you right?
Yeah, it's a personal development program with a compensation plan attached.
That's great. Personal development plan with a compensation program attached.
Yeah,
That's
because
awesome.
what, who wouldn't love to get paid to personally grow, right?
Because the more you grow as a business owner, the more that you can hold your power and really earn more of what you're worth, because there's the self-esteem and all of the other things seem to come right alongside with one another.
Yeah, it's given me choices. One of the first things I did when I started really doing well with Plexus is I stopped consulting the parents of child actors, which I I found depressing. I found that particular aspect of what I did really depressing, because so many parents were thinking that they were helping their children toward the road to happiness, and I knew it would be the exact opposite.
Mm.
And I found it hard. I found it hard, especially when they wanted it more than the child did, or they assumed that notoriety for their child would equal fame, and it brings so much negative along with it that I'm like, are you sure that you're not putting some golden handcuffs on your child? And so I became unable to perform that task with integrity, you
So
know.
it's like you were able to create a little bubble that protected the mental health, your mental health and happiness and your peace and satisfaction, because you were able to say yes to what made you happy and say no to all the things that were not making you happy.
Yeah, the most successful people are the best at saying no. They say no to almost everything. And in 2019, I started saying no, and it was like the best thing I ever did. I figured out what I wanted to be true of me in 15 years, 10 years. I did a long-term plan. What do I want my day to look like? What do I want to do when I wake up? What am I wearing? Where am I? Who am I with? First of all, you have to know what that looks like and what you want it to look like. And then you say to yourself, okay, so what does that person do in a day that got them there in the first place? And then it really gave me clarity on if a particular thing doesn't contribute to that long-term vision that I have, it's a no. Even, and that was the thing, I was a very good child acting coach, sought after. A lot of people were really upset when I said I'm no longer coaching child actors, because I was good at it. My own 4 children were examples of that. And I realized, oh my gosh, just because you're good at something doesn't mean you're supposed to do it.
Wow.
What?
That's really powerful. And it seems like everything goes back to you checking in with your own heart and your own spirit at different points in time. And instead of going under the pile of saying what I should, what I should, what I should, is you listen into your heart and say, what does my heart actually want at this moment? And what is it telling me? And using happiness as an important parameter to say, just because I can do it doesn't mean I'm supposed to do it
Right.
if it doesn't make you happy. I
So
want to ask.
many moms do that. So many moms do all kinds of stuff that they don't want to do because they're good at it.
Oh, so many business owners do that. I spend so much time when I'm helping my mentees around building the business that they love, is shadow boxing this track record of what they should do because they know how to do it and they're good at it. It's just not what they want to do now. And it's really figuring out how to make that leap. If you could say one thing to those who are listening around, how do you go about creating a life that you don't want to escape from, that actually feels like you, that you have work that makes you happy? What is that one thing that you would suggest as the next step that people can do?
I think I would go back to get rid of what everybody else tells you should be doing. Really sit down, take a whole weekend, write a story, the story of you in 10 years. What does it look like? Where would you be happiest? Is it in a mountain home? Is it by the beach? What are you doing every day? If you could do anything you wanted, who would you be helping? What kind of people would you be surrounded by? Figure that out first. That's huge. And then back it up and say, what did that person do each and every day that got her to that point? And then make a list of those things. And anything that isn't on that list, you say no to.
Listen, think through what you really want, say yes to what supports that, and no to what doesn't.
Yeah. For example, Plexus just expanded into Mexico. I want to be able to share my story in Mexico someday, my health and wellness journey in Mexico in Spanish. In 10 years, I want to be able to do that. Well, if I want to be able to do that, I better freaking learn Spanish. And that sounds overwhelming, but not if you take 20 minutes a day and you learn Spanish. So many people think, well, it's too late. I'm too old. What could you do if, instead of whining about being too old, if you took 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, downloaded Rosetta Stone, and spent 20 minutes a day learning Spanish? In a year, would you be fluent? Maybe not. But would you know more than you knew today? Yeah. Too many people just don't begin because it's just going to take too long. Just going to take too long. And so you have to figure out what you want. You know, if you want to be an author, you darn well better be writing every single day. Even if you're not writing the book that you're going to write or you want to write, you better be writing every day if you want to be a writer.
It's doing like those small things towards the goal. And it's like just really trusting that the goals has merit and that you're wanting it is a good thing, and that you could just do it in the small steps to get you to that goal. Everything is a one small step, but it really begins with listening to whatever it is and trusting that this has got value and to go after that one.
Yeah.
Thank you. I know I've taken up so much of your time already. I am so grateful. And I know those who are listening in are super grateful for your amazing wisdom and your journey and your constant courage and your constant desire to be the best version of you. It's been inspiring to watch you. I've known you for a long time, and people say, well, nobody really changes. I'm like, well, the essence of who you are is you, but you're just an amazing person then, and you're even more amazing now. So I am super grateful for the opportunity to talk to you today.
Well, thanks for having me.